Alright, hey guys, Mr. Kyle Myers Mathematics, and let's just jump right into it. This is finding slope from an equation. So, for number 1, 2, 3, 4, and then after that it gets a little harder. But for the first 4, they're in a certain form, and this form is called slope, intercept, form. Okay, so I'm just going to write slope intercept here. And so it's written like this: y equals mx plus b. This part is the slope. This part is the y-intercept. Okay, so it's called slope-intercept form, but it's actually it really should be called slope y-intercept form. But that doesn't roll off the tongue quite as nicely, which I guess is why they call it slope-intercept form. But it's specifically the y-intercept, not the x-intercept, not some other kind of intercept that might happen. It's the y-intercept. But that part's not important. The part that's important is the slope, because they want the slope. So the slope is always going to be the number that's times by x. As long as you have y by itself, it doesn't matter if it's out of order, right? So like it could be a number plus something times x. Well, it would be the something times x. Okay, without the x in it. So for number 1, the slope is just this thing right here, negative 5 halves. I'm sorry, that was a weird 5. Negative 5 halves, that's the answer. Okay, it's just the number that's being multiplied by the x, negative 4/3. And then we get to number 3. What number is there? Well, if you don't see a number, then it's either a 1 or a 0. Okay, if you don't see a number, then there's either a 1 or a 0. So we have what in front of x here? Well, if you don't see a number in front of like a letter, let's say, then that's got to be a 1. However, if we're looking for the y-intercept and you don't see one, that would be a 0, because the y-intercept is added to the x. So that one would be a 0. But if we're looking for the slope, which we are, that's the number being multiplied by x. Well, it would be 1. Negative 1 in this case. Negative 1 times x is negative x, right? So negative 1 is the answer. Okay, if you don't see a number multiplied by the x, that's because there's a 1 there, not a 0. Be careful with that. Think of it like this. If I say I have a pen, right? If I say I have a pen, like, hey, you want a pen? Do you want this? You want this pen? I wouldn't say I wouldn't say like, hey, do you want this one pen? Like, no, that'd be weird. You would just say, hey, do you want this pen? Right? Because when they see it, they're like, oh, hey, there's one of those, like one pen. So if you see an x, there's one x. So just remember that. Also for number 4, there's a number already in front. This one's not as terrible as number 3. And then we get to number 5, which is a totally different ballgame. So remember slope-intercept form? Y equals mx plus b. That's what all of these first 4 are in. Number 5 is not in slope-intercept form. Now, there are other forms of lines where you're given the slope. So later on, we might come across one that's in point slope form. Point slope form. And that's y minus y1 equals mx minus x1. So if you see something like that, where it's like y minus 2 equals 3 parentheses x plus 5 close parentheses, something like that maybe, then the number outside of the parentheses, still right next to the x, that would be the slope still. However, number 5 and number 6 and so on here, we don't know, it's not in that form. It's not in that form, right? So what we need to do then is solve it. We have to solve it. We have to solve it using our knowledge from literal equations. They're called literal equations. They're also called multivariable equations, like when you have more than one variable and you're trying to solve for one of the variables. So this gets a little tricky. I'll put the link for that video in the description because I already did a video on this earlier, and it's called literal equations. I don't like the title, but that's what they called it, so I just went with it. We need to solve this for y. Okay, let's do it. If x was like 3, right? If x was like 3, so if we make x turn into 3, then it would be 2 times 3 minus y equals 1. How would you solve that for y? Well, you times it first. And then you would subtract 6 on both sides, right? Negative y equals negative 5, y equals 5. Okay, so besides actually being able to multiply the 2 and the 3, what did I do? I subtracted 6 from both sides, aka the 2x, right? X turned into 3 for this little example because it's a little easier to solve an equation with only one variable in it. But what I did was I subtracted 6. Well, 6 represents all of this. 2x was turned into a 6 when I made x equal to 3. Okay? So I just subtract 2x on both sides. And then negative y equals negative 2x plus 1. You could also write 1 minus 2x. However, if you want to write it in slope-intercept form, you put the x first. Okay, so then we have this. Now, this is not done yet because we were trying to solve for y. We have negative y. So we need to multiply everything by negative 1 or divide, but, you know, whatever. So we multiply that by a negative 1, it becomes positive. Basically, we're just going to change the sign of everything. And now we have the answer. Ooh, that ramped up a bit, didn't it? We didn't have to do hardly any work for numbers 1 through 4, and now it's like, boom, there it is. Number 5 was kind of gnarly, actually. Number 6 is not going to be as gnarly, in my opinion. Let's go. Here's what we do. You always get rid of the x thing first. If it's in this form, right? This form actually is called standard form. Standard form. So if in standard form, it's ax plus by equals c. In this form, notice what we had to do was we had to get rid of the x first, right? We had to get rid of the x first. Bear with me here. I'm going to create an equation for you. So that way you can just plug it into this little equation, if it's in standard form, to figure out what the slope is without having to solve it each time, okay? Then we divide by b. So that means the slope is negative a over b. This little formula here is magic for you, okay? Use this formula when it's in standard form, when you have the x and then the y equals and then the number. If it's in that form, no other form, x then y equals the number. If it's in that form, it's in standard form, then you can do negative a, so the number in front of x, negative, and then the number in front of x, divided by the number in front of y. All right, let's try it. What's the number in front of x here for number 6? Well, I don't see a number. But does that mean a 0? No, yeah, you're right. So it would be 1. So according to this formula, right, let's identify what's a and what's b here. Right? So let me get rid of this. What's a? A is 1. What's b? B is 2. Right? A is the number in front of x, b is the number in front of y. So then check this out. Negative 1, right? Negative a over b. Boom, that's the answer. Okay? Now we could have done all the things that we did on number 5 for the answer to number 6. However, if you create a formula like I did here, then you don't have to do all that work each time. Okay? Using formulas is super helpful. It's one more thing to memorize, yeah, but would you rather do a ton more math work, or would you rather memorize one simple little formula, m equals negative a over b? I don't know. I don't have the answer to that. I don't know. It's not insinuating anything. Just whatever you think. I mean, if you'd rather work it out by hand than memorize something, then go for it. So, anyways, number 7. Let's use our formula. Negative a over b. Oh, cool. We're done. Negative a over b. We're done. Okay, and we can solve it by hand as well, right? So negative 8x on both sides. 3y equals negative 8x minus 9. Divide everything by 3. And then I have negative 8 thirds. Look at that. Minus 3, but we don't care about the y-intercept. We're just solving for the slope, right? Or for number 8, 4x, 4x. This is the last one I'll show you by hand how to do it without the formula, because the formula is super, super helpful. 5, 5, 5, negative 4/5. There it is. Okay, so that's how to do it when it's in standard form. Negative a over b. This one is negative 1, because the number in front of x is 1. A is 1, b is negative 1. It's negative a, so negative 1, over b, which is also negative 1, so this is 1. Slope is 1. Negative a over b, which we simplify to 4/3. If they're both negative, you write them as positive, right? A negative divided by a negative is a positive. But the numbers don't simplify. You could write it as a decimal, but eh. Okay, what about this one? Negative a over b. All right, done. Negative a over b simplifies to 4/5. Done. Let's skip 13 for right now, because number 14 is also in that form. Negative a over b. Done. Okay, now let's go back to 13. Let's go back to 13. Oh, by the way, I keep forgetting to change colors. Normally I change colors every 2 problems, but I didn't on this one. What do we do with this? This doesn't seem like it's in any form. Y equals negative 1. What form is that, right? Let's go back and look at our forms here. Well, it's not in this form. Kind of is, I guess. I don't know. I guess it sort of is. Yeah, like there's no x though, right? Like that's the problem, is there's no x. If there's no x, then how many x's do we have? 0. We have 0 x's. So we could write this, bear with me, we could write this as 0x minus 1. Right? If we don't have an x, don't we have 0 x's then? 0 x's, we don't have any x's. Because 0 times anything is what? 0. Well, then what's the slope? 0. Anytime you have y equals a number, so if y equals a number, then the slope is 0. Right? This is another little rule. If you have a y equals a number, the slope is always 0. Okay? Now, then we get to a little bit harder problems here. These are not in standard form, and they're also not in slope-intercept form. So you could solve them for slope-intercept form. You could solve it for y. Let's solve number 16 for y. We would subtract x on both sides. Subtract 5 on both sides. You can do those simultaneously. I don't know if you've ever done this before. If you have, let me know in the comments, and let me know if this is something you normally do. You like subtract or add something on both sides, like more than once. Like do them more than one at a time, which is totally fine. Boom, boom. Y equals negative 1x minus 5. The slope is right there. So that's one way to do it. If it's not in any form, it's not in standard form, it's not in point slope form, it's not in slope intercept form, you can solve it for y and get it into slope intercept form and do it that way. Or you can solve it and just get it into standard form. This, number 15, is almost in standard form. I just add 10 to both sides. And then move the 2x over here, and now it's in standard form. That was a little bit less work, and then we can use the formula. Negative a over b. Slope is 1. So that's one way to do it, right? We've just got a few more here. Looks like we've got 6 more. So let's look at. We'll go ahead and change colors. Why not? I don't know. I've gone this far. I don't know. It just feels weird to change colors all of a sudden now. I normally do though. It's just something I do. This is already almost in slope-intercept form, actually. If I divide both sides by -4, because I could just move the y over. Y equals -3/4 x minus 5. Which, if I flip it around, it would be y equals -3/4 x minus 5, like that. Slope is -3/4. If you didn't see that, you could always put it in standard form and use the formula for standard form, right? So no big deal, right? Same thing here. I'm really close to having y already solved. So I just need to worry about the x. The x looks like it's going to have a -1x, and then I'm going to be dividing by a -5. So that's 1/5. All right. Number 19. I've almost got y by itself. I just need to add 2x. Actually, you know what? This is in standard form. JK, LOL. This is in standard form because let's move it around. Let's move it -2x plus y equals -1. Standard form. It was basically already in standard form. Look at that. So negative a, careful, over b. That's 2 over 1, which is 2. Negative a, so the opposite of -2. Careful with the negatives. This is already in standard form. Sorry, not standard form. This is already in slope-intercept form. I just need to move it around. Right? Just put the y on the other side. This one, I'm surprised they don't have any with just x's. That'd be a good problem to do. I'm going to do that at the end here. Actually, let me do that now. And let me show you what that would look like. Because earlier, we showed, hey, if we have y equals a number, then the slope is 0. Well, what about if x equals a number, right? What about if x equals a number? Well, if x equals a number, then the slope does not exist, right? We can call it 0 with like a slash through it, unless you normally write your zeros with slashes through them. Or DNE, meaning does not exist. Or you can say undefined. Undefined. Any of those are probably fine for an answer. 0 with a slash, meaning like no answer. Or DNE, does not exist. Or undefined. Okay? And that's what you do if you have x equals a number. Because if x equals a number, that's a vertical line. Versus if y equals a number, horizontal line. A horizontal line has a 0 slope. A vertical line has an infinite slope. Infinity is not a number, though. So that's why we put does not exist or undefined or whatever. All right, anyways, let's go ahead and wrap up here. We need to get this into standard form. It's already in standard form. -x, -1x, plus 5y equals 0. Just kind of flip it around. So the slope is -1. Oh, sorry, just kidding. No, it's not. We have it in standard form. Oop, got a little ahead of myself there. I thought I was putting it into slope-intercept form for a second there. All right, so we have it in standard form, -a over b, 1/5. All right, and then this last one here. What form is this in? I don't know. This is a tricky one. Why don't we solve it for slope-intercept form? Let's do that. That's the first thing that came to my mind. I mean, if you wanted to put it in standard form and then use the formula, you could. You could totally do that. It just looked like maybe this would be the best route, or maybe just solve this first. I don't know. We divide by 10, divide by 10, divide by 10. And then we have -2 over 10. So m is -2 over 10. Notice I'm not going to simplify the 30 over 10. It's 3, but hey, why do more math than you need to? Just focus on the slope. That's all they need. -2/10 simplifies to -1/5. And that's the answer. That's the last answer. So if this video has been helpful, the best way you can benefit more after this is to get my free guide. It's called the 5 Math Mistakes Everyone Makes and How to Avoid Them. It is a free guide. It's on my website, Myers Mathematics. The link is in the description below. I want you to go check that out, grab that PDF, take a look at it. You can save it in your files and just refer back to it anytime you think you might be messing up on a math problem. You can be like, oh man, what kind of mistake am I making on this math problem? Or how did I get this wrong? You can go check out like how am I getting this math problem wrong? And then it also, of course, has a solution to each of the 5 math problems so that you can identify what kind of math problem you're making, what kind of math incorrect thing you're doing, and then you can fix it. It's a super awesome free guide. I want you to go check it out. It's my free gift to you. These are the answers, by the way. You can check this out on any Kuta worksheet. They have the answers included in them. Okay. If I got any of these wrong, let me know. I'm always curious to see if I messed up on one of these because I don't go back and check it or anything like that. I feel pretty confident in my work, but it is possible that I made a mistake, I guess. But yeah, that's it, guys. So you can always, like and subscribe and all of that kind of stuff. But I, more than anything, want you to do well. Let me know in the comments below if there's any video that you'd like to see that I can do for you to help you in your math endeavors. And have a good one. I'll see you again in another video real soon.